First of all, welcome to English 25760. I'm Dr. Jacoby, and I'm going to be your professor for the next 16, 17 weeks. And I am so excited that you were here because this is the very first time that a course like this has been taught at SE4 in the English department. Introduction to Gender and Sexuality in Literature. It's about time. This is winter of 2022. I know we're heading into sort of like the second-ish year of the pandemic, so we probably are all still struggling with those things. So I want to make sure that you have some contact information for me in case something unusual arises, because we live in very unusual times. So my cell phone is there for a reason. If you have questions, if you need help, if you want to talk about anything related to the course, or maybe it isn't related to the course, but you have some questions, please feel free to use it. Please do not call or text me after 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have kids. I have 3 children under 5. I am exhausted by 9 p.m. So there's no chance that you're going to get me after 9 p.m. If I miss your call before 9 p.m., I will return it as soon as I can, as soon as I don't have, any distractions. My email address is there. You can use that too. Canvas inbox is also an awesome way to get a hold of me if you have any questions or need clarification on anything. If you're here, the class begins January 10th. It ends in May. The last day to withdraw is April 22nd. That's actually not in the syllabus, and it needs to be. If for some reason we have to meet on campus, which I highly anticipate we're going to try to avoid, especially with Omicron, my office is 315G in the main building. However, I would prefer to hold office hours virtually. Zoom, Teams, telephone, okay? Call or text, but like I said before, anytime before 9. We can also schedule something if it has to be a sort of like much more interactive or inclusive. But we can do that via phone or otherwise. The abstract is here, so I've sort of, because this is like an intro course that has never been taught, I sort of had to come up with the course description, and the catalog description is very vague because people teach different courses under this subheading. But the course description is as such. This is a literature course that will introduce students to literature, pop culture, and critical theory, centrally concerned with issues of gender and sexual identity. Through careful reading, class discussion, via discussion boards, and critical writing, students will be invited to broaden their perspective on gender and sexuality beyond those offered by the dominant culture, or what some scholars would deem heteronormative society. We will interrogate the historical construction of gender and how it intersects with other identity categories such as race or class. Through intensive reading and research of cutting-edge theory, we will interrogate the very terms of gender, man, masculine, woman, feminine, androgynous, etc., and sexual identity, hetero, bi, homo, sexual, etc. And we will question some of the heteronormative constructs of gender and sexual identity. Okay? So if you're not comfortable with any of these things, this is obviously not the class for you. This is, and I cannot emphasize this enough, this is a safe space. I will not tolerate any type of bullying, discrimination, harassment. If I sense or see that any of that is happening, I will move to have you removed from the course. I am a cisgendered female. What that means is I was born biologically female and I identify as a female. You do not have to come out and offer the same things, but I want to make sure that that's clear. So my pronouns are she, her, hers when referring to me. You can call me Dr. J or Dr. Jacoby too, but just so you know. Further down the syllabus, what you will see are some outcomes. You will be able at the end of this course to select and apply appropriate methods of inquiry to analyze complex questions about gender and sexual identity, cultural difference, and/or equity. You will be able to describe how gender and sexuality intersect with other cultural categories like race, class, ethnicity, nationality, religion. It's a tough one for us, right? Sometimes identify and summarize current scholarly conversations. So we're going to read a lot of critical theory in this course, which actually is quite challenging on the surface, but I'm going to provide a lot of lecture videos which are going to help you unpack and dissect some of those really critical conversations that scholars are having about gender and sexuality. You will be able to connect text to contemporary discussions of human rights for sexual minorities, and you will be able to read carefully, discuss thoughtfully, write analytically, think creatively, and participate actively in this course. There are 5 books that you must buy for this course. The other readings that are listed here, you do not have to buy. I will provide electronic versions of those works for you. You need to buy, and I have them all here. The first one is Kate Bernstein's My New Gender Workbook from Routledge. It looks like this. It is awesome. If you've already started to peruse this book, there's one thing I want to caution you on. You're going to be working through this book. It's going to be assigned in different chapters. Are going to be assigned in like different, and they're going to seem sort of random weeks. I'm not going to have you share the outcomes of some of the exercises and some of the things that are unfolding for you as you work through this workbook, because this is a very personal exercise. And you're going to say, well, then why do it at all if we're not going to talk about it in class? It is because what you learn from this workbook, what you take away from this workbook is actually one of the final project options at the end of the semester. So I'm not just giving it to you to waste your money, to waste your time. We're going to, I think, go through at least 5 chapters. I'm going to assign them. I'm not going to ask you to share the information because as you start working through this, you'll understand that it's really very personal and not really anybody else's business. Some of the conclusions that you come to concerning your own gender identity and sexuality. You actually don't have to choose it if you don't want to for the final project, but this is sort of a tool I think that everybody should have when understanding gender. And then, of course, understanding how gender and sexuality intersect. So this is one of my favorite books for introductory courses when it comes to gender. The other books that you need, this is Tom Perrotta's Election. It's actually one of the first books that we're going to be going through at the beginning of the course, which I'll lecture on a little bit in week 1. You need to buy it. We're not going to buy the whole. We're not going to read the whole thing. There's an option to read the whole thing, but we're going to be reading, I would say, at least almost half. I'd say it's more like like a third of it. We're going to be reading in this course, and then you need to also get a copy. This actually doesn't matter. The version doesn't matter for this one. You need to get Henry David Hwang's M. Butterfly. Okay, and this is just one version. You do, however, need to make sure that you buy one that has the afterword in the back because it's key to understanding why the play was written in the first place. This, another favorite of mine, Fun Home, Alison Bedshall, a family tragicomic. It is actually a graphic novel. Awesome. We're going to read at least 2 chapters in here, which are very long. There is also an option at the end of the semester to complete the reading of the book and write your final paper on the book. Same thing with M. Butterfly. We're going to read about half of it for class, and then if you want to write your final project on it, you need to finish the rest of the play. And this is the last required text. Dude, You're a Fag. It is an introduction to masculinity and sexuality in high school. And to be honest, in my humble, slightly educated opinion, there is no better way to start talking about gender and sexuality other than going back to high school and analyzing some of the behaviors we see in high school students and adolescents. So C.J. Pascoe has a collection of chapters in here She actually conducts a study at a high school in California, studying specifically masculinity, but also how other gender identities and other races and ethnicities sort of intersect with that behavior. It is fascinating, groundbreaking stuff. This was actually at first published, I believe, in '74, but it was republished. No, that's not right. Yeah, I think it, no, hold on. I have to get my things straight here, but no, it was published after. It was first published in 2007. After she did a study. She actually spent, her day-to-day at a high school cataloging her experiences. So I'll talk more about that later. If I get too involved in that now, this syllabus introduction video will be an hour long. Other readings, Helena Sisu, The Laugh of the Medusa, awesome. It's a feminist manifesto. Maxine Kingston's A Portion of the Woman Warrior, awesome. Asian, and we're looking at sort of like, Asian text, Asian identity, gender, sexuality. Judith Butler, sort of famous queer theorist. We're going to read an essay that she put out on femininity and identity. Christos, indigenous poet, talks a little bit about what it means to be two-spirit. Gilbert and Gubar write, I'm going to take a portion of The Mad Woman from the Attic, which is actually an allusion to Jane Eyre. If you've read Jane Eyre, there's like a woman crawling around in this man's attic. He's locked her away up there because she's the loony wife, right? And he's trying to remarry and sort of forget about her. And like feminist scholars have a heyday with that novel for that reason. And this, and in the awesomeness, that woman burns the damn house to the ground in the end of the novel anyway, right? But Gilbert and Gubar take the mad woman in the attic, the illusion, right, in Jane Eyre, character in Jane Eyre, and they write a whole collection of essays about feminist or feminine representation in fiction, and even talk about the struggle that feminine writers have when trying to create their own work. And so we're only going to read one chapter of that, and you won't actually have to read the whole thing, but more on that later. But it's titled Infection in the Sentence, and it's an awesome, awesome chapter. We're going to read Audre Lorde, Black feminist, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House, Garza, Her Story of the BLM Movement, trying to bring it into, modern day. We're going to look at a trailer from Fight Club. I know that might seem a bit off key, but when we go through Pascoe and Parada's work, I think you'll understand how masculine identity sort of fits in with Fight Club, sort of like a result of how men perform masculinity. Okay, and so all of those works 1 through 8 I will provide for you. All assignments are due 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. The exception, of course, I believe would be the last week of class where everything's sort of due on a Friday. You'll have to write reflection papers every week, though they're worth 10 points apiece. They're due on Fridays. Your discussion boards will also be due on Fridays. You'll have to have an initial post on Friday and one follow-up to one peer on Sunday. Your initial post, well, let me go back to reflection papers for a second. Most weeks you will be required to submit a one-page, single-spaced response paper to the reading. There are multiple readings sometimes covered in the week. You only have to choose one. Make sure it's in 12-point font Times New Roman. Okay, single-spaced. They are formal papers. You can address background. You do not have to use outside sources. If you want to use outside sources, of course you can. These are not summary papers. We've all read the work. Okay, everybody that's participating in this course has read the work. Don't spit that back at us unless you're trying to prove a point, construct an argument, or to question what's happening in the reading. These are good places to ask me questions if you're confused about what you've read. I find that students really benefit from reflection papers because they can get some of those answers that they want, but also because it serves as sort of this breeding ground for pre-writing for formal papers. So I find that they're really helpful. So your responses, like your discussion board responses every week, can be fueled by those reflection papers. Do not copy and paste the reflection paper into the discussion board. Because there are questions there that I do want you to answer in the discussion board. Usually I just want you to answer one, but if you want to talk about multiple, you can as well too. So that's just a little bit of, otherwise you can do pretty much what you want with reflection papers. They're informal. You can use I, me, we, she, he, they, you know, second person. Formal papers obviously are different. I don't want any informal language, but reflection papers, we're just starting to grapple with the work. A lot of this writing, none of you have ever really been introduced to before, so it's a way to get going. Discussion boards, there will be a plethora of questions you can choose to reflect on. So you need to have an initial post. If you don't want to type out your post, you can provide a 2 to 4 minute video reflecting on the answers to some of those questions. And then you have one follow-up on Sunday to a peer. Your response should be thoughtful reflection on the thoughts of a peer. Find a way to help along some of the ideas that they may be struggling with or unpacking themselves. You also have a syllabus quiz, which I think at this point is worth 12 points. Could be worth a little bit more or a little bit less. You have one 4-page paper that will be due at the midterm that's worth 300 points, and you have one final paper project which is worth 1,000 points. Academic dishonesty. I hope if you're in a 200 level class, you know that plagiarism and cheating will not be tolerated. There are consequences outside of the classroom for those things. So if you cheat or plagiarize and it's, you know, bad enough, I can refer you to sort of a judicial panel that can deal with the egregiousness of the cheating or of the plagiarizing. So please don't do that. All papers should be written in MLA 8 or 9 with the appropriate documentation style. I do not accept late work. However, we do live during COVID, so I'm a little bit more flexible than I used to be on late work, but talk to me before an assignment's due, not necessarily after something's due. And we can work through it. Revision policy. As long as the first 4-page essays turned in on time, you will have the option of revising for up to a letter grade more, and that's due by the 3rd Friday before the end of the semester. I think I mentioned before, April 22nd is the last day to withdraw with a W and not an E. And as I've stated before, this is a course with very sensitive material. There is a disclaimer underneath General Education Competencies at the bottom of the syllabus that I would like you to read. I'm not going to read it to you right now because I've already sort of covered this, but very sensitive material. We're going to be talking about things that may challenge your mythologies, that may make you uncomfortable. And if you're not comfortable with those types of discussions, then this isn't the course for you. But if you have any questions about the syllabus, just let me know. Good luck with the syllabus quiz, and I look forward to working with all of you.